Many males stay benign. They're tamed. They're secure. These have swapped their nails for ease plus their fangs for praise. These step inside a space and the environment won't shift. These talk and others cut them. These feel rage and others giggle. But then, there exists a different sort, an anomaly. You've noticed him. Perhaps you've sensed him. He needn't yell to get noticed. He needn't pose to get viewed. He enters a messy hall, and that mess calms. Not via regard, but via some visceral ancient dread. Niccolo Machiavelli, that author who composed the Manual on Dominance, never wrote for those harmless. He wrote for those formidable. He grasped that within some world of predators, acting like prey isn't any virtue. It's a fatal blunder. If you've selected this footage, it's because you sense some transition occurring within you. You're weary of being that prey. You're weary of that polite male template which culture provided you upon arrival. You're becoming something different, something keener, something chillier, something lethal. Let's clarify one point before we proceed. When I mention lethal, I don't mean aggressive. Aggression is the instrument of that feeble male who surrendered restraint. I mean lethal like an iceberg remains lethal. Quiet, huge, unwavering, capable of wrecking durable vessels merely by existing. A lethal man is one who cannot be swayed. He is one who cannot be guilt-burdened, forced, or belittled into compliance. He is one who understands precisely what he represents. And due to that, he remains the most influential soul in every hall he enters. You're observing this because you're discarding your former casing. You're sensing the passing of your former people-pleasing identity, and it alarms you. It ought to. Evolution is ruinous. It stings. You might suspect you're becoming cold or aloof or even mean. But you aren't. You're merely waking up. Machiavelli labeled this vert. Not goodness in some pious way like being some good lad, but vert in that classic sense. Competence, power, utility, the capacity to face the glow directly, recognize it for that grim, cruel arena it can be, and steer through it with a doctor's accuracy. Today, we shall examine the 7 indicators that you're passing that boundary, that you're becoming that male Machiavelli described, the male everyone tracks, the male everyone secretly respects. But take heed, this isn't some list of shortcuts. This is a scan of your inner shadow. There exists a concluding phase for this change. A sign numbered 0, which I shall only disclose at the very finish. It represents the toll you remit for this authority. Most males aren't prepared to remit it. They'll retreat. They'll elect to stay harmless. Will you? Let's discover. Sign number 1. The passing of the nice guy, the initial indicator, is the most agonizing. It's the passing of your requirement for approval. For decades, you've been conditioned to stay pleasant. We all were. We were instructed that if we're civil, if we're helpful, if we ignite ourselves to provide others warmth, the universe shall gift us. But you've observed. You've reviewed the facts and you've grasped it's a deception. That pleasant guy concludes last not because he's moral, but because he's feeble. His civility isn't a preference, it's an obsession. He's pleasant because he's petrified of friction. He's compliant because he's petrified of dismissal. You're becoming lethal because you've ceased mistaking morality for fragility. Machiavelli observed, it remains far safer being feared than cherished, since affection is held by the bond of debt, which, given the greed of men, is severed at every chance for their gain. But fear sustains you through a terror of penalty which never quits. This feels blunt. It feels dark. But examine your own journey. How many instances has someone you cherished and aided failed you the second it proved beneficial for them? How many instances has your devotion been met with apathy? The transition occurs when you quit hunting affection from the globe, which is actually just approval, and you begin insisting on respect. You're observing that your refusal has grown weightier. Previously, when someone requested some gift you didn't wish to grant, you fabricated an alibi. You deceived. You remarked, "Oh, I'd cherish to, but I'm occupied." You blunted the strike. You attempted to regulate their feelings. Now you merely say no. You offer no alibi. You don't regret. You grasp that you owe nobody a justification for how you employ your assets, your hours, or your drive. This alarms people near you. They'll label you altered. They'll inquire what's wrong. You functioned so helpfully before. What they mean is you function so easily to exploit. You're crafting what Machiavelli termed planned severity. This doesn't suggest you seek to injure others. It suggests you're prepared to take that difficult, hated path if it's vital for your endurance or your goal. The pleasant guy evades the tough talk because it feels unkind. The lethal man conducts the tough talk instantly because he prizes reality over ease. You're pruning dead weight. Peers who leak you, kin who coerce you, routines that sap you. You're performing it with some icy surgical rigor. It isn't frantic. You aren't yelling at them. You aren't battling. You're merely shutting the entrance. This is the mark of a male who prizes his own quest more than he prizes the cheers of the flock. If you find yourself feeling less remorse about failing people, take note. You aren't becoming a villain. You're becoming a ruler. You're grasping that you're the sovereign of your own spirit, and a ruler cannot permit being a carpet. Sign number 2. Emotional 0 point. The second indicator is that you've ceased reacting. Observe the common man. He's a cluster of naked tendons. He's a prisoner to input. Someone blocks him during transit. He's fuming. His supervisor delivers a snarky message. He frets. A lady ignores him. He tumbles into gloom. The media displays him something terrifying. He dwells in dread. He is a marionette, and the globe pulls the cords. Anyone can reach inside his ribcage and crush his spirit. Anyone can seize his psyche. But you're sensing a gap widening, a space between the event and your response. There is currently a lull, a stillness. Machiavelli employed the imagery of the fox plus the lion. That lion is total force, total response. But the fox stays smart. The fox recognizes snares. The fox won't seize the lure merely because it's present. You're becoming the fox. You're crafting an emotional 0 point. This means you may view turmoil without becoming turbulent. You can endure the center of some yelling match and observe your heart rate stay flat. People misread this as indifference. They assume you don't care. They assume you're hollow. You aren't hollow. You're controlled. You grasp that your feelings are data, not commands. Simply because you sense rage doesn't mean you must behave enraged. Simply because you sense dread doesn't mean you must behave scared. The lethal man treats his feelings like a panel inside a jet. If a bulb flashes red, he sees it. Ah, I'm feeling slighted. He scans it. But he doesn't yank the controls and wreck the craft. This renders you impossible to coerce. Consider a snake, a toxic mate, a poor boss, a narcissist. How do they function? They depend upon your response. They jab you to watch you leap. They mock you to watch you explain. They weep to watch you apologize. But what occurs when they jab you and you merely stare at them? What occurs when they mock you and you don't explain? You merely concur and proceed. What occurs when they attempt to guilt you and you stay stoic? Their authority evaporates. You're becoming a glass. You bounce their conduct back toward them without taking it in. Machiavelli claimed that fortuna, luck, destiny, the world's mess, is like a flooding stream. The fragile man gets carried away by that stream. He suffocates in his fate. The male avert constructs levees and walls. He directs the flow. Your internal restraint is that wall. You're discovering that you talk slower. You don't hurry to bridge the gap. You don't hurry to justify yourself. You're fine with the pressure. When a storm strikes, a bank loss, a split, a health crisis, your initial thought isn't "why is this hitting me?" Your initial thought is "alright, what's the tactic?" You've shifted from a casualty state to a general state. This is the peak liberty. To exist in the globe, but not belong to it. To sense the blaze, but not ignite. If you sense this icy precision arriving, don't resist it. It represents the shield you'll require for the strikes ahead. Sign number 3. Pedestal destruction. The third indicator is a metaphysical change. It's the vanishing of your idols. While we're lads, we gaze upward. We gaze at our dads. We gaze at leaders. We gaze at icons. We gaze at ladies. We place them upon pillars. We assume they're unique. We assume they possess the solutions. We assume they're fundamentally separate from us. But as you grow lethal, physics intervenes. Everything comes tumbling down. You're starting to detect the fissures in the monument. You gaze at your dad, and you don't perceive a deity. You perceive a man, a flawed, maybe broken man who is merely guessing. You gaze at the leader, and you don't perceive a guide. You perceive an egoist hunting power. You gaze at the mogul, and you don't perceive a wizard. You perceive someone who found luck, or grit, or both. And crucially, you gaze at the target of your hunger, the lady you idealized, and you don't perceive a saint. You perceive a mortal. This is termed desacralization. You're peeling the holy layer away from reality. Machiavelli was loathed because he performed this on politics. He gazed at lords and clerics and remarked, "These aren't chosen saints. They're merely thugs in fine silk." He viewed the globe as it functions, not as it should. For a male who hopes to live entirely by his claims of virtue quickly meets with what ruins him among so much that is malicious. You're grasping that nobody is arriving to rescue you. The gurus you followed? They're just souls vending you item. The agencies you trusted? They're just machines built to sustain themselves. This realization might feel heavy initially. It feels like the wonder is dying. It feels like bitterness. But it isn't bitterness. It's adulthood. When you remove people from the pillar, you can finally meet their gaze. You can trade with them. You can test them. You can outplay them. You cannot duel a deity, but you can duel a man. You're becoming lethal because you're no longer tricked by the glow of rank. When a supervisor snaps at you, you don't feel like some rebuked child anymore. You scan his power. You scan his doubt. You see him like a biological unit having a fit. This relates specifically to your romances. The weakling puts ladies upon pillars. He prays. And because he prays, he cannot govern. He cannot be real. He's too busy acting. But the lethal man perceives the lady as she exists. He values her, sure, but he doesn't pray to her. And oddly, this is exactly what renders him magnetic. He is the initial male she has encountered who isn't trying to purchase her favor. You're traversing the globe with your lids wide open. You see the pulleys, you see the payoffs, you see the raw human drive beneath the jackets and the grins. You're no longer a spectator. You're a contender in the arena. Sign number 4. Strategic quiet. The fourth indicator is the one other spot first. You've ceased broadcasting. In this era of digital noise, everyone is broadcasting. Everyone is shouting, "View me. View my meal. View my opinion. View my joy." They treat their intellect like cheap trash, scattering it everywhere. They inform everyone of their goals. They inform everyone of their anxieties. They inform everyone of their coming strike. And because they disclose everything, they're vulnerable. Machiavelli understood that data is authority. And to provide data freely is to surrender authority. Everyone views what you seem to be. You witness what you truly are. You're becoming lethal because you're becoming a vacuum. You've ceased shouting your tactics. You're laboring in the shade. You're constructing in quiet. When you possess a massive concept, you don't share it online, you do it. When you're pained, you don't share a sad lyric on your page. You mend. When you're succeeding, you don't gloat. You merely succeed. This quiet is tactical. It renders people shaky. It sparks their doubt. When you're silent, people mirror their own insecurities onto you. They speculate what you're pondering. They speculate what you grasp. They start to overanalyze their own conduct near you. Inside a deal, the soul who talks the least keeps the most leverage. The soul who talks is showing their hand. The soul who listens is scanning the deck. You're discovering that you relish the mystery. You grasp that you don't require the chemical rush of hearts and notes. You possess a hidden blaze flickering inside, and you don't wish to let the heat escape. This likewise covers your history. The lethal man doesn't vent his past. He doesn't employ his former trials as a method to gain pity. He keeps his cards tucked tight. Why? Because he grasps that the globe is not a clinic. The globe is a war zone. And within a war zone, you don't display the rival where you're leaking. You're becoming a riddle. People ask your peers, "What is he doing?" "He's been silent lately." And your peers don't know. Nobody knows. And then suddenly you surface. You surface with the new firm, the new body, the new talent, the new life. You surface fully realized while they're still debating what they intend to do. Quiet is the vessel of greatness. Static is the killer of visions. If you find yourself saving your speech like gold, you're on the correct track. You're learning the control of the void. Sign number 5. The potential for force. This is the indicator that renders people tense. But we must address it. Jordan Peterson famously remarked, "A harmless male is not a moral male. A moral male is a very lethal male who has that under willful control." You're starting to acknowledge the beast within you. For years, you smothered your drive. You smothered your darkness. You claimed it wasn't there. You assumed that being refined meant having no claws. But now you feel it. You feel the potential for drive. You feel the potential for ruin. And instead of being pained by it, you're merging it. You're grasping that without the potential for chaos, your calm means nothing. If you cannot strike, your mercy is just defeat. This often shows physically. You begin training. You begin moving heavy steel. You begin mastering martial arts, boxing, wrestling, kickboxing. Why? Not because you desire to harm others, but because you desire to know that you could. There is a deep mental shift that occurs when a male knows he is bodily capable of finishing a clash. He grows quieter. He grows kinder. He doesn't require to brag. He doesn't require to play tough. The mutt yaps because it is petrified. The panther rests because it knows it is the master. You're becoming the panther. This merging of the shadow, as Carl Jung might label it, grants you a new type of vigor. It grants you a hunger that is tireless. Machiavelli lived in a period of warriors and strife. He knew that a ruler who couldn't handle the blade would eventually be ruined by one who could. There is no match between the prepared and the helpless. And it isn't logical that he who is prepared should bow down to him who is helpless. Apply this to current life. It suggests you're becoming capable. You're becoming formidable. You're discarding the current model of the weak, soft, pliable guy. You're welcoming your nature. You're welcoming the instinct to win, to shield, to create, and to crush barriers. You quit apologizing for your masculinity. You quit apologizing for your drive. You gaze at your dark side, your ego, your heat, your pride, and instead of hiding them, you utilize them. You strap them to your wagon. Your heat becomes the spark for your toil. Your pride becomes the bar for your merit. Your ego becomes the fence that guards your hours. You aren't killing the beast. You're schooling him. And a school beast is the most valuable partner you shall ever possess. Sign number 6. Ruthless ranking. The sixth indicator is a shift in how you treat hours and drive. Most males are sloppy. They waste hours browsing. They waste feelings on sports clubs. They waste drive on feuds that don't count. They are leaky pots. You're becoming sealed. You're crafting a ruler's thrift. Machiavelli taught that a master cannot manage to be everywhere and perform everything. He must be lean. He must focus solely on what holds and grows his realm. You're treating your life like a realm. You're becoming fixated on profit per effort, ROI. Not merely with cash, but with your essence. Before you start a task, you inquire, does this render me harder, smarter, or wealthier? Or does this render me softer, dumber, and poorer? If the answer is the second, you predict coldly. You quit viewing the media because the media is built to render you frantic and helpless. You quit feuding in message boards because it alters nothing and leaks your focus. You quit loitering with souls who merely wish to kill time. You grasp that killing time is demise by inches. You're becoming dull to typical people. They inquire, did you watch that Netflix hit? You say no. They inquire, did you hear about that star's drama? You say no. They assume you're failing. You know that they are the ones failing. They are failing their own lives because they're too busy watching the lives of others. This focus renders you lethal because it permits you to stack your talents at a speed that feels impossible to others. While they're unfocused, you're practicing. While they're amused, you're learning. You grasp the law of trade-offs. Every hour you give to something mediocre is an hour you took from something great. You're becoming a marksman. One pull, one hit, no wasted motion. This alarms the people near you because they see you moving away. They see the gap growing between where you stand and where they stand. And they know internally that they could be doing the same, but they lack the grit. Your life becomes a trial of their laziness. And that is why they'll try to drag you back. They'll call you fixated. They'll call you a machine. Let them. Fixation is just the term the idle used to label the driven. Sign number 7. The welcome of solitude. The concluding indicator, the certain result of all the others. You're becoming fine with being solitary. Actually, you're starting to want it. The lethal man is a master and mastery is a solo journey. The higher you scale the peak, the thinner the oxygen grows, and the fewer souls can exist there with you. Most males are petrified of solitude. If they're solitary in a hall for 10 minutes, they break. They grab their device. They start the screen. They require noise to muffle the sound in their head. But you're making peace with the silence. You grasp that your sharpest thoughts arrive when you're solitary. Your vision arrives when you're solitary. Your power resets when you're solitary. You are no longer a segment of the flock. The prey needs the group to feel safe. The predator does not. Machiavelli composed his finest pages in banishment. He was robbed of his rank, booted from his city, and forced to dwell on a farm. He was solitary, and in that solitude, he saw the globe more clearly than nearly anyone in history. You're grasping that you don't require a group to confirm your reality. You can rely on your own sight. You can rely on your own logic. This renders you lethal because you cannot be erased. You cannot be shunned. Peer pressure functions by scaring you with banishment. If you don't agree with us, we'll toss you out. The lethal man gazes at them and remarks, I was already departing. I don't require you. This is the peak protection. When you don't fear being solitary, you are free. You can speak the truth because you aren't petrified of losing peers. You can take gambles because you aren't petrified of looking dumb. You're building a citadel inside yourself, a spot where you are whole. People shall enter your life, and you'll invite them. If they depart, you won't break. You'll merely bolt the latch and resume your toil. You're becoming the sun. You possess your own pull. You glow with your own gas. Others may circle you. Others may feel your heat. But you do not rely on them to glow. Conclusion. Sign number 0. If you detect these marks in yourself, take a breath. It is vivid. It is weighty. You're becoming a lethal man. You're ending the pleasant guy. You're ruling your feelings. You're viewing the globe without tricks. You're moving in quiet. You're merging your drive. You're aiming your force. And you're welcoming your solitude. You're becoming the male Machiavelli planned. A male avert, a male who carves his own destiny. But recall what I mentioned at the start. There exists a sign numbered 0. The toll of this authority. The toll is this. You can never return to sleep once you view the globe this way, as a contest of power, plan, and psyche. You cannot unsee it. You cannot return to the simple fog of naivety. You will forever be scanning. You will forever be watching. You will forever be distinct. It is a load, but it is a noble one. Because the globe doesn't require more prey. It has plenty. It requires masters. It requires shields. It requires men who are lethal enough to face the mess and impose order onto it. You aren't becoming a monster. You're becoming a ruler. And the ruler guards the land. But grasping these indicators is just the start. It is one thing to know you're shifting. It is another thing to guide that shift. To use this psyche not merely as a shield but as a blade. To grasp the deeper rules of control, charm, and power webs that Machiavelli couldn't even put in his text because they were too risky for the herd. If this woke your spirit, grasp this as merely what I can display openly. There are clips I cannot share for everyone. There are parts of dark psyche, plans of control, and facts about human core that I simply cannot talk about openly on here without being blocked or cut. The code kills the most potent data because it is built to keep you prey. Those facts live behind the join link. If you're still present, you aren't like the rest. You possess the gut for the dark. Join if you haven't. But if you desire what's veiled, hit the join link and enter the architect tier. You'll unlock private, raw clips that sink into the lowest, darkest spots of the human brain. The stuff your dad never shared. The stuff society tries to mask from you. Most won't hit it. They want to stay safe. They want to stay harmless. That is the point. That door is ajar. Step through it.